Welcome to this Facebook live chat, where the goal is today to talk about what BCG do in financial institutions, and also a bit about our experience in this field. My name is Tiril and I work as a consultant here in BCG Oslo. I started approximately 3 years ago as an associate in 2015.
And I'm Gustav and Tiril. I'm a partner here at the Oslo office, and I was a summer associate 17 years ago.
We will start this conversation by talking a bit about our experience and education prior to BCG. And
then we'll talk a bit about what we do in financial institutions, what they are, and some of the biggest changes programs we're running now with the biggest financial institutions globally. Good. So before we dive into that, could you share a little bit on your experience and the history before joining BCG?
Yes, so as I mentioned, I joined BCG in 2015 after finishing my master's at Norwegian School of Economics in Bergen. I also had 1 semester on exchange on Columbia University in New York. And I had a couple of internships while studying, a couple of years in a Norwegian savings bank working for the consumer financing department. And also 1 internship as a consultant in Accenture. And while studying, I also worked for a small investment firm in Bergen. And what was your background prior to BCG, and how has this shaped your career?
So I was originally an engineer, Master of Science in Telecoms and IT, and from Trondheim in Norway. I joined the BCG straight out of school. I did, however, work at IBM while studying, and I had my small IT company at one point as well. But basically, I spent my entire career at BCG. And business I've learned here. I never managed to get an MBA. I thought I'd had enough business education working here throughout those years.
And to make it a bit clearer for the audience, what BCG do, what kind of work we do in financial institutions, and what the practice actually consists of. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, so financial institutions, if we really dumb it down, it's banks. So it's what people generally refer to as banks. And within a bank, you have from the retail segment, which is the products that you and I use. Then you have the corporate area, which is serving business customers, both companies like BCG itself or our clients. And then if we look at the product side, it's from payment products, so either cards or payment services, up to asset management, investments, markets products, and then more complex structured products as well. So it's a fairly large span of both complexity and types of products. And then what do we help our clients with? It will be basically everything they need, but it can range from how to work better towards serving your customers, how to run your call centers better, how to organize your bank. There's quite a lot of people in banks, we have to organize that as well. But then it's also very technical things like how can we risk score better, how can we price better, and lately we do quite a lot of startup work for the biggest banks, launching their own digital ventures, basically.
And I'm a bit curious because the financial institutions, I mean, typically has been traditionally very male-dominated. And although everyone agrees that diversity is key to a successful company today. So are there any client stories you would like to share, or any success stories where this has changed lately, or even what are we doing in BCG to foster diversity?
I think you are generally very right. So banking globally is not too diverse. In the Nordics and in specifically Norway, however, I think we've done a lot better. So if we look at the biggest bank in Norway, DNB, their executive management is basically 50-50. If we look at the 2 largest alliances of banks in Norway, so Sparebanken 1 and the Eika Alliance, both of their CEOs are actually female. So I think it's really been a success in the financial institutions industry in Norway. And then within BCG, we have several successful female BCG FI partners. And then in the Nordics, although we don't have a FI partner yet, I'm hoping you stay for a while, but we have a fairly diverse team of all types, and are pushing quite hard to maintain that balance in the team. And since you asked, why is it important, Tiril, to have these diverse teams?
I believe that for our clients, I think it's important to have a diverse case teams to foster good discussions with our clients and have different viewpoints, because that's, I mean, that's something about diversity that you couldn't, or a pure male team, for instance, couldn't necessarily bring from the best ideas.
And we also get that feedback from clients.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So actually, we've heard that from clients proactively coming to us and asking for diversity in our case teams. And for an organization and for BCG in general, I would say that it's key to actually, diversity is key to ensure that we have role models on different levels in the organization. And using myself as an example, as a relatively junior female consultant at BCG, I find it extremely valuable to have some senior female role models that I can discuss different topics with. For instance, having children while working at BCG. Although that applies for men as well, I think there are certain things that apply specifically for women, and also, unfortunately, the reason why some women decide to quit BCG. So that's, and I think that BCG is really good at ensuring those forums exist, so we can have those conversations and meet other senior female leaders at BCG.
We at least aim to and try to as much as possible. So if we move a little bit to our clients, what are the big challenges they are facing now?
I would say that some of the biggest challenges today with rapid and continuous changes to the banking environment, largely driven by digitization and increased competition from new players such as fintechs disrupting the industry. There's an urgency for incumbent players to adjust to this new digital reality, or that I believe they will risk becoming obsolete. And I think there's an increasingly important differentiator factor for banks to focus on customer centricity and personalization and truly transform the customer experience to actually keep their customers. And having worked a bit longer than me in the financial institutions, and also had a few more years than me in BCG, how has technology increasingly been affecting your career and also the industry?
So I think banking has been quite, or parts of banking has been driven by technology for quite some time. So I think, for example, in the payments area, it has been quite a technological game for a long time. But the rest of banking is fascinatingly manual, or at least in the way it's automated, very manual in thinking. So with what we refer to as digitization, I think that's really going to disrupt banking the way we know it. And basically every single part of a bank will be considered or attempted to be digitized during the course of, I would say, 5 to 10 years. And we will see massive disruption in that time frame. Then I think the outcome of that will be that in some areas, new or technology-oriented players will take those markets away from banks. But for large parts of what banks do today, I think some of the banks will figure it out. But I would expect maybe 2/3 of the banks that exist today, or their brand names, will probably not exist 5-10 years from now. And even within the third that do survive as brand names, a very large part of the population of those companies or the people working there will be different people than they are today. So it's a massive change that the industry is going through. But you've also had some very recent experiences within this industry and felt a bit of the disruption.
Yes, absolutely. I recently returned to Oslo after spending 8 months in Melbourne, working on a large-scale transformation for one of Australia's leading banks. And a cornerstone of that transformation I was part of was the Customer Journey Program, led by BCG and BCG Digital Ventures. And the program's objective was basically to help the bank kickstart their journey to become a truly digital bank and also a customer-centric bank. And to exemplify just what a customer journey would be, one would say that the financial institution has approximately 20 different customer journeys. One of them being me as a customer applying for a mortgage, and the journey from me actually contacting the banker to receiving the funds in my account.
And what is BCG's approach to clients in this reality?
Again, I would build on my recent experience from Australia, and what we did there was that BCG leveraged our broad experience from setting up similar customer journey programs around the world, and in close collaboration with the client, we basically set up the customer journey program to be the ongoing change vehicle in the organization, so that we could kick or foster sort of velocity and ensure that in that also ensure new ways of working, building on agile principle, and increase speed to market and velocity in delivery, new and improved features for the bank.
And how big a value was this to the bank?
I was only part of one smaller part of the transformation, obviously, and I was part of the business lending journey, where the objective was to improve the end-to-end loan origination process for business customers. And what we did there was to identify the key pain points that the customers were currently experiencing along the process, and find innovative solutions to eliminate these, either through process changes or automation or other form for digitization. And how I see that we actually delivered true value was that we worked with the client team that was 100% dedicated to this program on a daily basis, and bringing new ways of working and new ways of thinking, really enabling them to actually internalize this new ways of this agile way of working, which I think was maybe the biggest impact we made, to actually enable them to drive this change individually after we rolled off. And after spending 8 months on a digital transformation, obviously there's a lot of talk about and focus on how we can become more digital. So what do you think about the human component? How do we ensure that we have the right leaders, or who are the right leaders to take this transformation?
I think, ironically, success in digital transformations is much more about the human element of it than the technology. The technology is there, so it's about being able to use it. And then I think the reinvention of all services and products in banking starts with truly understanding the human aspects of the customers the banks have, using customer journeys as you've been doing in Australia, but also quite deep human-centered research. And then I think Agile itself is a way of working. It's about how humans work together. And I think it's about delegating responsibility to the teams. It's about cross-functional teams of people working together, learning to collaborate in a good way. It's about, yes, some tools, but very low-tech tools, to be honest. And then it's about continuously improving and daring to experiment. And I think what we're learning is that people in this way of working, and with the closeness to the customers as well, are much more self-driven and much more responsible for what they make and what they do. So it's not about delivering your job, it's actually about helping other people, and that's much more natural for people to focus on.
So what do you think are the most important lessons financial organizations and leaders must keep in mind while they're transitioning to this new reality?
I think the first thing is that there will be quite some changes in middle management and to some degree also top management of banks in the years to come. So the future leaders in financial institutions, they need to be intimate with technology. They also need to understand the new ways of working. And one example is you won't in the future see PowerPoints where you can measure progress on how things are developing. You actually need to go and follow a customer journey yourself and then have a view on, is this good or bad? Is this app a good app or a bad app? And then when you go back and look at the same app 4 weeks later, you have to see if there's been positive progress. and if you're happy with the progress or how fast that has developed. And I think for many leaders today, that's going to be quite a change to embrace. And then I think we educate future leaders at BCG, either for our own partnership or for our clients. And reflecting a bit on what their career will look like in the future, you actually need to be a bit more cross-functional. So you need to have the human-centered understanding. You need to be quite good at data analytics and using the tools, or at least understanding how that works. You need to have an overview of technology and what technology can do. And then, of course, you need the traditional banking knowledge as well. We are not talking simple retail products here. Some of the stuff is actually quite complex. And then lastly, I think a lot of the future in banking will be very hands-on. So like you've been doing in Australia, but what leaders everywhere will experience is they need to be with the teams and working hard side by side with their people.
And on that note, what is your thoughts on the rise of and use of artificial intelligence in financial decisions?
Every time we talk about technology and FI, artificial intelligence comes up. Now, I think first point is that the banks are more than just balance sheets. They have a lot of great people, but they also have a ton of data. And I would say that the gold mine of the banks is actually all the data that they have. Today, they don't use that to a very large extent, and this is something they need to start doing quite quickly. And then, just as an example, so it's quite easy for us people knowledgeable to build an algorithm that does risk scoring of customers better than a human being filling out a credit paper and spending several hours on that. And the fact that you can actually automate or digitize these types of things with analytics already has a large effect. And I'm actually quite certain that the banks that don't embrace this, they will disappear over time. And then that you can do already with normal analytics. It's advanced, but it's not artificial intelligence. And then I think, given the amount of data, we already use artificial intelligence for certain things in banking. So some of the market monitoring, some of the investment type areas, they use the best possible, and then it's always towards artificial intelligence it goes. But I think for many of the utilizations we'll be looking at in the next years, normal advanced analytics is going to be plenty. And there's actually one other element which is a bit special for banks. Remember I said earlier that banks have a role in society and are critical infrastructure. And there are elements of what you do in banks which you won't be able to predict. Artificial intelligence, by definition, you can't predict what the outcome is. And I'm quite certain that when a bank goes bust, the authorities would like to know why it happened and not just blame a machine. So I think it will be used to some extent, but to some extent it will also be predictable.
That makes sense. I think that was everything we had time for today.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.